It's now 6:30. I did just start the recorder, so the recorder's on.
Welcome, everyone. It's the October 6th meeting of the Barrington Planning Board. As chair of the Barrington Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with the Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to the Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through Microsoft Teams, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following phone number, 603-664-0240, and the conference ID for the Teams meeting. We will start with a roll call vote to see who have in attendance tonight. My name is James Jennison. I am the chair. Jeff Brand.
Present.
Steve Diamond.
Present.
Donna Masucci.
Present.
Andy Knapp is not with us tonight. Ron Allard.
Present.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in attendance. We have a quorum. We also have in attendance tonight Marcia Gass, the town planner, code enforcement officer John Huckins, and land use administrative assistant Barbara Irvine. We will move the minutes for September 1st to the end so we can get to action item number 2. We have a request by applicant for site review for change of use to add a hair salon barbershop on a half-acre site located at 614 Franklin Pierce Highway. Do we have someone here to represent her and tell us about the project?
Yeah, we're here. Pretty much the salon barbershop is not listed as a current approved use for the property, and that's what we're hoping to do with it. So we have an application in to get that change in use approved.
Very good. Do members of the board have any questions about the application?
I had one question about the, well, two questions actually.
I can't hear him.
You can't hear me?
Not
Well, not well.
I'll turn it up. Yeah.
Well, I can try. I'll speak louder then. I had two questions. One had to do with, and I don't know who this is a question for, but the circular driveway. One comment was must be closed consistent with the prior site approval. Why was the driveway not closed off for the previous approval?
Jeff, I can answer it. I guess it was planters, and the property owner removed the planters. He's now agreed he will put them back. The only other thing that I would say DOT has now, they're weighing in, even though this is a much smaller use than the prior approval, which was for retail. But one of the conditions I would put on this is that DOT gives their sign off on it.
Okay. The other question I had is about whatever chemicals might be generated as a result of the salon going into that sewage system, whether that system has been evaluated and can handle whatever it is.
I'd let John weigh in on that. Usually she's got to go through the barber and hairdressing licensing, and I would believe that they would handle that permitting. It's not something we necessarily would review in order to get, and maybe we should let the applicant explain what's involved with getting approval by the state.
Sure. So after we get the certificate of occupancy, the cosmetology board inspector will come out, and she has a list of items that she goes through, and then we have a checklist that we go through, and she has to go through all those before we can get authorization to open. We did have a plumber come out and inspect as well, so that has been done already, and everything looked good. So
So the plumber came out, and part of his inspection was to make sure that the septic was adequate for the use. And also on the cosmetology board's inspection, there's a checklist which involves material safety data sheets for any chemicals that will be used. So it's definitely something that we're prepared to deal with. And in response to the circular driveway as well, I know that in response to any concern that it has been closed off at this point too, and no traffic is currently going through there on a circular basis.
All right. John, did you have any thing to add as far as the septic goes?
The septic is actually regulated by DES for the use. I did do a rough inspection on the plumbing out there, and we got to go back for the final because we got to verify like water temperature and everything else for anti-scalding, because of the way things are set up.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm having headphone speaker complications. If there's no other questions about the application, a motion to accept.
Actually, Jamie, I have one more follow-up question to Jeff's question.
Go ahead, Ron.
On the driveway, I know that DOT doesn't want to have two driveway openings, but looking at it, to me, making that one-way traffic circular seems to me to make more sense than taking it away. Is there anything we should consider, or is it a done deal with DOT?
And I'll tell you, staff didn't disagree, including the fire chief. But it is a DOT permit, and when I spoke with them, they're pretty adamant about their charge of the permit and what they want to do. I was trying also, we got to leave it up to them. Unfortunately, we're of the same opinion, but it's their permit.
On part of the last approval, there's the parking that goes between Caleb Country Store and where this building is, and it's like 4 or 5 parking spaces in there, and it's one way going in, and then you got to loop around the back, and you got to go out on the other side of the building. So it already creates a big loop going around, but doesn't go into the area where the house in the ground, like the little barn area is. That's only something they can get to. The customers would actually be parking in those, I think it's 4 spaces or 5 spaces there. I can't remember how many. Well, it's on that plan. We bring the plan back up. Yeah,
but DOT's big concern, and maybe this is something, not that you need to write in the notice of decision. The fire chief's concern was no backing out into Route 9, which is a state law anyway. You're not supposed to back into a state right away like that. But just as a heads up, my suggestion would be, and again, is that maybe the operators use the parking spaces in front of the building, and have the customers use the ones that are identified along the side of the Caleb's building.
Can you see the plan I brought up, Ron?
I cannot, but I have the plan here, and it just seems to me.
Right
I know
between the two
DOT's
buildings that comes in, there's 7 parking spaces, and then you can see it loops around, and there's a driveway that comes out on the other side of the house.
I didn't do that. I'm kidding.
Right, but I'm looking at the circular one right in front, John.
Yeah,
To get
that
in
one's
that
supposed to be
driveway,
blocked off just for their personal use, though.
coming around 9, you got to do like a hairpin turn to get in there, and then you're more likely to back in on Route 9. Having that be circular seems to me to make all the more sense. I can't understand DOT requiring that to be blocked off.
They're adamant.
Is there signage that's not public parking for customers?
Right now, the driveway is blocked off where you see the barricade on the map, just to make sure that we are in compliance through this process. And since it's come up again, I have spoken with the owner and represented him through the application process. And his intent is to abide by the Department of Transportation's wishes when it comes to the property and how they want to handle it. I think he mentioned that he would agree that he would prefer that it be a one-way in and one-way out. So he may appeal to them for that change. But whatever they decide, the intent is that we're going to abide by the Department of Transportation's wishes there.
I guess my point was more, if that driveway is intended just for employee parking only, is there a signage to prevent customers from trying to pull in there and get closer and then, oh, well, you can't park in here, can you go over there, please, to precipitate, confusion and backing up and that sort of thing?
Currently, there isn't any signage there, but if it's relevant, we can add it.
Would they be willing to add that? Because we can make that.
To me, that may make the most sense, just a simple employees only entrance or something to that effect might just prevent unnecessary traffic pulling in and out.
Sure.
And maybe even adding a sign by the other parking area to say customer parking, just so the customers know where they got to go.
Right now.
What was that?
I do have one being made for near the Calif's parking right now, currently. But I can add another one too.
And I saw a comment somewhere, I forget who made it, that some rocks to block off access, to block off and protect the parking spaces.
So the fire chief weighed in on that. That is not relevant. That's not one of our site plan regulations. That has to do with the outside dining. So he will handle that separately. That's not part of this site plan approval, because that's a completely separate issue, and the fire chief is going to handle that separately, and the property owner has also agreed to do that. So
I have a question. Jamie, Steve here.
Yes, please.
So the shared access with Calif's, including those parking spaces that rely on that access, is that legally formalized as far as your right to share that access with them?
It is. In fact, it's on the property for 614 Franklin Pierce Highway, and that property is sharing it with Caleb's.
Gotcha.
it was part of the original approval, Steve. If you remember back, it's been like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, but that was all part of the original approval. The only thing these folks really are doing is moving their business into what was that country cupboard, that the store portion. They're just moving spaces. They're not adding to the building or anything. Just simple change of use is basically what it is.
And the use is a one seat unit in there it's not like they're going to have 5 hairdressers in there. It's a 1 seat operation. So the total impact and the amount of traffic going in and out should be less than what was there previously.
Yeah, maximum of 2 chairs, it says. So let's accept the application as complete if we're good on application stuff, and then if there's another question after that, we'll do that as well. If we have a motion to accept the application as complete.
I make a motion to accept application 238 SITC 20SR as complete.
Second.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion by Jeff Brand and seconded by Ron Allard. Steve Diamond. Steve, you there?
Yep. Aye.
Okay. Donna Masucci.
Aye.
James Jennison. Aye. Jeff Brand.
Aye.
Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
The application is accepted as complete. We have no waivers. I'll just read the planner's comments. This application is strictly to add a permitted use to the existing building. No changes are proposed to the current site or building exterior. Use is consistent with prior approval. Applicant will have to meet all state and local permitting requirements. Required 4 parking spaces under private approval. There are 10 available. Closing the circular driveway. The property owner must address the protection of the picnic tables unrelated to the change of use request. No impact per road agent. No concerns from the police. Does the board have any more questions before I open public comment?
I do. I just want to know, can we ask,
Donna, go ahead.
okay, what are your hours and your days? What is that in detail?
Currently, I operate as a booth renter, and I work Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sundays. I actually have a previous clientele. I've been working 10 plus years, so I don't have advertising for walk-ins right now, but so the clientele that I have will be coming in. So it's literally just moving from one location to another. So.
How about your nighttime? I mean, what would be the latest that you would be open?
9 o'clock generally.
9 o'clock, you said?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there adequate lighting around there for the customers?
Yeah, there's a lot of spotlights and a lot of porch lights. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I saw there was on the plans that there was going to be a sign erected. I assume that there will be a sign permit that'll be submitted.
If there's a sign permit, it would go through code enforcement.
Right.
Was there? Oops, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I said I understand that. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood there is one shown on the plan and that a permit application would be required to erect a new sign there.
Okay, I know that there's an existing sign with a, with a spot for that. Yeah, with a placard spot for that unit. We would just be replacing the existing signing with one with our name on versus
By the town's regulations, if you're just changing the facing on the sign, you're not changing any lighting or location or size, you don't need a permit. You can change the wording by town's regulations.
But if you want to change or do anything different, just consult code enforcement and he'll guide you through it as to what you may need to do if you want to make it, if you're going to change anything other than wording.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll open up public comment. If there's anyone that would like to ask a question, please speak up or type in the chat and I'll try to see if I can read your questions. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. The board have any more questions?
I'd like to go back to the septic topic a little.
Sure.
So John's answer sounded like it was basically saying that we follow DES's rules for septic systems. But what's before us right now is whether or not this change of use is a safe thing to do in this location. So I guess what it comes down to is what potentially hazardous materials are there. I mean, the number of people involved getting your services isn't going to be hundreds. It's not like the nutrients are excessive for that site. I've heard of maybe plastic beads used in some products, and I wonder about perms. What materials are used in that, and if they're safe. So what do you have to say about the products you use and the materials that might be in them?
Currently, I do not do any perming, so that's good for me. And just color products. So that would be, I have all the MSDS sheets on that, and then as well as a lightning system, and that's pretty much it for chemicals. No beads and no perms and no hair straightening is also another service, and I don't provide that as well. So
the lightning, is that like a bleach approach? How do you do that?
It's a lightener, but it's a conditioning lightener, so gentle. And I don't technically, the amount of clients that I do, it's not that much. So that was one of the plumber's questions too for me. And it's just really basically for chemicals, it would be shampoo, conditioner, products, and coloring, basically.
Well, chlorine is not a particularly healthy thing, but I suppose people use it in other bathroom products quite a bit. So this wouldn't be a huge scale difference. So maybe that's not a big change.
Yeah, and I guess the question is part of the process, does the Board of Cosmetology look at septic design as a requirement and then compare your MSDS sheets as to the septic disposal system? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess we're unfamiliar with the process, thinking of,
I don't currently believe it's on the list. I think that they basically focus on the plumbing of the water system, which we've had checked. I don't know about septic. If you want, we could always have somebody check it. If that's something that you'd like to add, I'm happy to comply with that. I can have somebody check out the septic system.
yeah, well, I mean, in my experience, checking it out doesn't give an abundance of information unless you have a septic design. And I don't know if the owner does, if that's, you know, and when that septic was put in. Do we have any information about that, John? And is it relevant?
It
I
actually
don't know
doesn't
if
apply to this application, and if there's a change in use of a system that increases the usage, that's when it kicks into a septic design because of the loading. Even then, if it's something that's going to be created, what the state says is you got to get a design to show that the lot can support whatever system would be needed, but you're not required to put that system in until the existing one goes into failure. And this particular use for the water usage is going to be less than what a residential use would be for normal use for showering, bathing, you know.
Yeah.
It's going to be way under, the usage is way undersized for what this septic is going to handle, I guess the best way to put it.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that. The rest of the board have any other questions? We have no waivers, correct? I will read the draft notice of decision. Dear applicant, this is to inform you that the Barrington Planning Board has conditionally approved your application. All the precedent conditions below must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to the plans being certified by the planning board. Certification of the plans is required prior to the commencement of any site work or recording of any plans. Once these precedent conditions are met and the plans are certified, the approval is considered final. Please note, if all the precedent conditions are not met within 6 calendar months of the day, the board's approval will be considered to have lapsed unless a mutually agreed extension has been granted by the board. Conditions precedents. 1, the circular driveway must be closed consistent with prior site approval. 2, the applicant must meet all state and local permitting requirements.
Jamie, let's add a couple, provide sign for employee parking only. And then approval from NHDOT.
Number 3, provide sign stating employee parking only. Number 4, approval from New Hampshire DOT. And number 5, any outstanding fees shall be paid to the town. General and subsequent conditions, where no active and substantial work required under this approval has commenced upon the site within 2 years from the date the plan is signed, this approval shall expire. An extension not to exceed 1 year may be granted by majority vote of the board so long as it is applied for at least 30 days prior to the expiration date. The board may grant only one such extension for any proposed site plan. All other plans must be submitted to the board for review to ensure compliance with these and other town ordinances. Active and substantial work is defined in this section as being an expenditure of at least 25% of the infrastructure improvements required under this approval. Infrastructure shall mean in this instance the construction of roads, storm drains, and improvements indicated on this site plan, RSA 674-39. All right, if there's no further
Jamie,
questions.
Oh, yes. Did we actually vote on this?
No, we're about to vote if we have a motion. I was just reading the draft notice of decision.
Can I just add one thing too? I wanted everyone to understand in regards to DOT, I will bring to them, because they're kind of looking at it now, I was trying to explain to them, it was a very small change of use, that we've agreed to the closing, not only the closing off the entrance that we talked about, but providing the signage that says employee parking only. then they'll know that there's not a lot of people going in and out of that entrance, which was probably their biggest concern.
Sounds fair.
Yeah, and actually, I like to reword that a little bit, that blocking off the driveway if required by DOT. If they don't require it, I would prefer to see it be a circular driveway one way.
Yeah, it's already required is one of the things. That was their rule to block. They're the ones who decided to block it off.
Yeah, but the homeowner says they might go back and try to get them to change their mind. So I want to leave that option open if DOT agrees.
Okay.
What they're saying is access management, you want to minimize the number of interfaces with a major road.
Which I understand, but if you look at that circular driveway, it's actually safer to leave it one way than it is to block it off.
If it's, well, the assumption is if it's used appropriately. And people don't go in the exit and out the entrance.
One of the things they brought to me, and they had a little sketch that was when the original approval went through about five years ago or so, and it showed some hatching, and it showed a widening actually of that lane. And so, I said to them, I said, they said in the future possibly, and what my argument to them was and is that there is like minimal traffic, especially for that driveway, which certainly would not necessitate the widening of the road for it. So I guess we have to leave it up to DOT anyway. It's their, and they've made it clear, it's their driveway entrance. So hopefully it'll at least get to stay the way it is.
All right.
I seem to recall from previous examples that DOT is more open to more access points if there's the one-way aspect. So who knows, maybe.
I wish they'd suggest, brought it up, but.
Yep. No, we'll see they'll see what they decide, I guess.
Yeah, so we'll leave it up to DOT, and I will bring forward to them the idea of the one-way in and out, and see what they say too. Okay.
Sounds good. If there's no other comments or questions, I'd be looking for a motion to approve this application.
Jamie, I do have one other question.
Sure, Donna.
Yeah, trash removal, how's that going to be handled? Because I do know there are some chemicals involved with hair dye, stuff like that.
Trash removal? Is that what you said, Donna? Trash
removal?
I'm sorry, removal?
Yes.
Is the question if there's specialty trash removal? Like, is there
a dumpster on site?
There is a dumpster on site.
Okay. And is any of the waste you generate hazardous in nature that shouldn't go in regular household trash?
No.
Is that good, Donna?
Perfect.
All right. So a motion is in order.
I make a motion to approve application 238-SI-TC-20-SR.
I'll second that.
A motion by Jeff Brand and seconded by Donna Masucci. James Jennison, aye. Jeff Brand.
Aye.
Steve Diamond.
Aye.
Donna Masucci.
Aye.
Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
Everyone in favor, congratulations and best of luck.
Yeah.
Thank you
We're
very
very
much.
excited. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank
Take
you
care.
all.
All right, next up, we have 238-36B TC-20-2. Request by applicant for a 2-lot subdivision. Lot 1 would be 8 acres and lot 2 would be the remaining 21 acres. Mr. Cole, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. So pretty straightforward. So the application in front of you is for a 2-lot subdivision. This is actually in relationship to the next agenda item coming up beyond this for site plan review. There is a parent parcel of 29 acres owned by Haley Revocable Trust. Proposal is to divide it into two separate lots, one being 21 acres and having frontage on Route 9, and to leave the remaining 8 acres with the current ownership having frontage on Route 125. Very simple 2-lot subdivision, one straight line. We did go out and actually provide passing test pits on both parcels and proposed well locations. Due to their size, they do not require state subdivision. Again, very, very straightforward.
All right. Does the board have any questions?
I have a question about the waiver. So the waiver is asking to waive 50-foot right-of-way width and replace it with the 30-foot for private drive. This is a private road, is that correct? These are private drives?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jeff. And actually, I discussed it with Marcia, and it was noticed as such for both applications. It's actually really only relative to the site plan review, which is the next agenda item. So the waiver really is not for this applicable 2-lot subdivision.
Okay. I didn't understand why we were doing it here, but I still have a question when we get to it as to where it's a private road, which the requirement for a private drive is 30 feet. Why we were jumping to the 50. I suspect it has to do with the interpretation of the table relative to the we can discuss that when we get there.
Yes, sir.
So do we want to,
I would suggest you accept the application for the subdivision as complete. The subdivision's very straightforward, and then deal with the site plan separately.
all right, sounds good. Does anybody have specific questions on the application? And if not, a motion to accept the application is complete. My mic off? Nope. All right, looking for a motion to accept the application as complete.
I thought if I stayed silent long enough, somebody else would step up. However,
Not likely.
not, yeah. Okay, I make a motion to accept application 238-36-V/TC-20-2 sub as complete.
Second.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Ron Allard. James Jennison, aye. Jeff Brand,
Aye.
Steve Diamond,
Aye.
Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
The motion carries. Application is accepted as complete. So should we table this waiver to the next thing? Would it be, is it appropriate to grant a waiver for just a subdivision?
I would eliminate and not eliminate the request for the waiver for the subdivision. I think that what was confusing is we address road width in our subdivision regulations, but it's really, in this case, it's completely has to do with the actual site plan.
Right.
So yeah, so just deal with the 2-lot subdivision separately.
And the site plan regulations reference the subdivision regulations for roads.
So I guess the formal request would be to move this waiver to the other, if the board is accepting of that. We're gonna have to address it one way or another, but I think it's appropriate with the site.
Well, I'd
Move
say,
it or eliminate it from here.
well, it would be eliminated here, withdrawn, and then he could speak up when we're going through the next application and request the waiver
Right.
based on
I do-
what he's submitted.
Shoot, right. I just want to address that that's what we're doing, so we don't say that we didn't get this waiver for this other plan, you know.
Well, let's ask the applicant if he'd like to withdraw their waiver.
I would request we withdraw the waiver for this particular application.
Well,
All right.
withdrawal is granted.
Does the board have any other questions in regard to the subdivision? I hear none. We'll open public comment. If there's anyone that would like to speak on the subdivision, feel free to speak up or type into the chat box.
Jason, this is Rick Spinelli. Can you hear me?
Hi, Rick. Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I just want to clarify one thing. I had a question on the waiver as well, and if I understand what you just did, that means the waiver in this subdivision is now eliminated, and you're going to put it over into the other item you're going to come up with next.
Correct. We'll address it in the site review process once we know what the waiver is in regards to.
Okay, because that was my basic question, what it was in regards to. So, okay, I'll hang on and wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close public comment. The planner's comments we have here is this application is done in conjunction with the site review of map 238 lot 36, which we'll see next. And her question was, does the applicant have a New Hampshire DOT curb cut on 125 for lot 36.2?
Is my recollection, as you see on David Vincent's plan, there is a historic driveway easement that is actually connected for the property utilizing the Irving Station entrance. That is a restricted area for access along that route. And they historically have an easement. If needed, they can use that to go in and use the apron that goes into the Irving Station. They would not be allowed a new one onto Route 125.
All right. Marcia, is there anything else that, I don't know the only comments you had?
No, we just, and of course, we just crossed out on the draft notice of decision, that waiver that we just withdrew. So on this, I had put under number 3 was provide an HDO2 approval acknowledging the curb cut on Route 125. So you're saying there is no curb cut on Route 125? So should we reword that some way where they have access from?
It would be an allotted easement that accesses Route 125 through the Irving Station.
Can we reference note 5C on the plan?
Okay. I just feel like something should be in there just to, okay, so it's 5C on the note.
On the plan, yeah, it says parcel has the benefit of an easement as prescribed in SCRD book 4449, page 335.
Okay. All right, so it's on the plan, so we don't even need to put it in the notice of decision. Okay.
Does the board have any other questions or comments?
So we're scratching number 2 and 3 on the draft note, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions, I will read the draft notice of decision. This is to inform you that the Barrington Planning Board has conditionally approved your application referenced above. All the precedent conditions below must be met by the applicant at the expense of the applicant prior to the plans being certified by the Planning Board. Certification of the plans is required prior to the commencement of any site work or recording of any plans. Once these precedent conditions are met and the plans are certified, the approval is considered final. Please note, if all of the precedent conditions are not met within 6 calendar months to the day, the board's approval will be considered to have lapsed. Unless a mutually agreed upon extension has been granted by the board, reference 8.2.3 of the Town of Barrington subdivision regulations. Condition precedents. 1, add the owner's signature to the final plan. Add the wetland scientist stamp and signature to the final plan. Proper and complete survey monumentation shall be installed on the properties as a condition to final approval of the application. Granite bounds shall be set at the intersection of existing or proposed lot sidelines with existing proposed streets. Iron pins, pipe or rod are to be placed at all property line corners and angles, at all points of curvature and points of tangency. Monuments for the lot being developed shall be placed not more than 300 feet apart in any straight line. The applicant surveyor shall certify in writing that the bounds and pins have been installed according to the submitted plan. Reference 8.8 of the Town of Barrington subdivision regulations. Any outstanding fee shall be paid to the town. Final drawings, 5 sets of black line plus 1 set of 11 by 17 final approved plans must be on file with the town. Each individual sheet in every set of drawings must be stamped and signed by the land surveyor, engineer, or architect responsible for the plans. Note, if there are significant changes to be made to the plans specified above, one full-size check print must be sent to the land use office for review prior to producing these final drawings. General and subsequent conditions. In accordance with RSA 674-39, active and substantial development shall mean the expenditure of at least 25% of the infrastructure costs required for development, as indicated by a subdivision approval by the planning board within 24 months of said approval, where approved plans have been properly recorded at the registry of deeds. Infrastructure shall mean, in this instance, the construction of roads, storm drains, water and sewer facilities, or parking lots. Compliance with this definition shall also necessitate that a bond or other security to cover costs of said infrastructure requirements has been posted with the town prior to the beginning of construction, if required as a condition of approval. All right. Any final questions or comments by the board?
The one bit of significance of this change to me is it precludes the possibility of a road connecting from 9 to 125 across what is the lot at this moment right now, but might not be in a moment. Other than that, I don't consider it significant from a planning perspective.
And yeah, I hear what you're saying, Steve. I guess in my perspective, as a development is processed for either one of these, or a project is put forth, I think that would be the time where we'd say, let's leave open connectivity like we have in the past for other parcels. If that makes sense.
And,
Actually, yeah, when you see the next plan actually does show a connection, correct, Scott? Yeah, the subsequent plan.
Yep. We have actually done
All right,
that for planning. We left a access easement over the new large lot to the smaller lot in case there was a need for such a right of way.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll get to it. Thanks.
All right. If there's no other questions, and someone would like to make a motion to approve this subdivision,
I make a motion, we approve application 238-36-V/TC-20-2 sub.
I second.
motion by Ron Allard, seconded by Jeff Brand. James Jennison, aye. Jeff Brand. Jeff Brand.
Aye.
Steve Diamond.
Aye.
Donna Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
Motion passed. Subdivision is approved. Best
Thank
of
you.
luck, and moving on quickly. All right, next up we have part 2, if you will, of this. 238-36V-20-SR. Site review for multifamily development for map 238 lot 36. All right, we got it up on the screen. Scott, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Scott Cole from Beals Associates. I believe Jason White, the developer, should also be available virtually through the meeting. So we have a proposal in front of you here. We were previously in front of the board for a design review meeting to review such project. So pending final approval of the previous meeting, there would be a 21-acre lot that would be developing in 80 units consisting of 24 unit buildings shown in brown on the display board in front of you. Each building would be a 3-story building. The lower elevation would be garage area, and then 2 floors of living space above. We did provide to the board some architectural drawings. There are some displays and architectural views of the buildings. If you could please save your questions on that till the end. I believe Jason would be better suited to answer any of your questions for that. In the design review process, there was a question or concern of the availability of an elderly couple or an older folk being able to purchase one of the units, and accessibility. We have spoken to the developer about that, and Jason will have an option in the units for an electric chair rail. He has done that in prior units and says it works fine for that. So that they will be units that will have access for an older person. If we can go back to the code display just for a second. So some of the differences from this plan, from the original design review plan, as you can see along the entrance, previously we had 2 units right up to the 50-foot landscape buffer along Route 9. What I've done is I've taken those 2 units, moved them out back. What this does is it provides a very large landscape buffer from Route 9 to the first building, which would be approximately 160 feet. So, trying to provide more green space and buffer to Route 9 and the direct abutters across the street. As you can see, in doing this, the abutter to the west or left on the plan now is quite shielded with the garage side of their home. They shouldn't really be able to see any of the buildings from their view or their premises. If you look on the eastern side, assuming that a building would be built on that lot relatively in line with all the others on Route 9, anything proposed would be behind that residential structure, again providing more buffer. So this design in front of you has a private right-of-way. That would be from Route 9 basically to the termination of the entrance coming in. It was our understanding, based on the regulations, even for a private road, it had to meet the town criteria. So it is 24 feet wide, curbed. However, it has a 30-foot right-of-way. Now I'll get to the waiver actually at the end. We have a private loop that has been designed off of the main thorough. We have designed that in such a way that the interior radii is very large, with 40-foot radii. We have done that so any large emergency vehicle, such as a ladder truck or a tractor trailer, can go all the way around that loop with no issues at all and then leave the premises.
Hey, excuse me just a second. Hey, Jamie, could you mute your mic there?
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
yep. So that was also one of Mr. Walker's concerns with having the availability to make sure that a large apparatus truck could go through there. So we have designed it in that fashion. In addition to the road, I don't know if somebody can zoom in, but we do have in the darker area on the left side of the road, that is a proposed bituminous sidewalk. Thank you. That is a sidewalk that was requested at the previous design review. That would be a bituminous sidewalk. The reason being, we have provided a 5-foot grass strip in between the road with the bituminous curb and the sidewalk. So that gives a nice buffer and safety reasons for anybody walking on that aspect. At the beginning of the road, you can see there was a proposed mail kiosk that would handle all of the deliveries and mail to the project. And we have provided an apron suitable for a couple of parking spaces in that, so they will not be in the road at any time. In addition to the parking spaces that would be within the buildings themselves, in the garage and outside of the buildings, at the request of Mr. Walker, we have also provided additional visitor parking. There was approximately 20 spaces provided throughout the project in case there's a need for an overflow or visitor parking. So there should be no instance where anyone is parked actually in the road. The mail kiosk as well is located 100 feet from the entrance, again, trying to keep a good landscape buffer, as you can see. I did the display plan, so it's easier for people to understand that the darker green is what is intended to be kept. I think most people realize where this location is. There are some mature vegetation and trees there, so the darker green represents what will stay other than the entrance coming in. On the sides, you can see the 30-foot setback relatively will be left in its natural state, again, trying to provide much buffer as we can. For the drainage system proposed, with the bituminous curbing, we have a number of catch basins collecting all of the drainage. It's collected and ran to the rear or the southern portion of the project, where it is divided into two drainage structures. We have a wet pond centrally located, and then a bioretention pond on the east side behind building 20. So those will maintain the volume from the drainage runoff and treat it as well. We provided a maintenance schedule. This will be for the association, so it will be privately maintained. So we offered them a maintenance schedule for the checkups and what needs to be done to adequately service the drainage structures. For utilities on this site, they will be private utilities comprised of 5 different septic fields and 2 community wells. They will have utility lines as a normal function in the road going to those services. The septic systems themselves, as you can see, there is 3 septic beds towards the middle of the property. I know there was a comment from the Conservation Committee as to they would like those pushed away. We have actually placed those based on New Hampshire DES criteria for nitrate loading. The septic systems have a large setback. A nitrate setback cannot go over the parent parcel boundary. So where they are placed right now is to appease New Hampshire DES, and they really could not be moved any more north because the nitrates would go over the setbacks. As I said, the water will be comprised of 2 municipal wells. They are out back in the open space area, which is roughly 13 acres. There will be 2 wells combined with a pump house to pressurize the system for the development. For fire protection, it is required that these buildings will be sprinkled. And as Mr. Walker requested, we have also provided a 30,000-gallon fire cistern centrally located in the project across from building 7 with a bituminous apron for that apparatus. We did propose lighting. We have basically, I believe, 7 lighting spots. They are mostly located at all the intersections and radius points of the road. These are night sky compliant down shielded lights. They will not light up the sky. They are more of a safety, so people can see and have lighting, but they will not light up any abutting property or the sky. We do understand that the client has requested that we didn't provide a landscape plan at this time. Obviously, he didn't want to pay for a landscape architect to fully do it and then maybe have the plan change in any form. We do understand we need to provide a landscape plan, and that would be coming forth. That will be for specific plantings and whatnot. As I said, the darker green on the plan is existing vegetation that will remain, but a landscape plan will be coming forth pending a positive result of this meeting. For traffic and the entrance in relationship to this project, we have provided some traffic counts to the board. Hopefully you get a copy of that. We did supply a driveway application to New Hampshire DOT roughly 2 months ago. I finally got a letter back a couple days ago with some commentary and some requested details and some added figures. The data they are requesting, they would like to see traffic counts projected at a 10-year term or build out. I explained to the client, we don't really have the capability of doing so. So what we have done is we have actually hired Vanessa Associates traffic engineers. I believe the board should be familiar with them. They have done multiple projects in town. Some of the bigger projects for Joseph L. Zone. They have done large traffic studies. So they will be providing more data on top of what we provided to assist us in answering anything specific to DOT and the requirements they may see fit for the entranceway. So getting to the proposed waiver, we have requested a waiver, which we understood was required. We thought that any private or public road required a 50-foot right-of-way. What we have requested is a 30-foot right-of-way. As you can see, really the basis for this was more or less for the abutters, as being a 30-foot right-of-way, we still have a 40-foot building setback. With the reduced right-of-way, it gives us more green space and more buffering to the abutters on the east and west side. There is no change to the road. It's still the same width with the sidewalk and etc. It's just a narrower right-of-way. That right-of-way would connect throughout the road system, and we have provided 2 access easements, one to the east and one to the west. The one on the west would be for the previous application to the 8 acre piece for the 2-lot subdivision. And then just north of that, there was a 30-foot access provided in the event the abutter develops their property or needs access to their land. For future planning, we provided those easements. I believe that's all we had. We really tried to address all of the concerns the planning board members had in the original design review. We understand there's still a little bit more to do, but we think we've put together a good project, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. If the board has any questions.
Is this project going to be done in phases?
I would assume so. There is nothing distinctive right now. I could certainly find that out for you from the developer.
Yeah, I mean, we need to know that, and because there's, some specific requirements dealing with how the phasing and how the bonding goes with the phasing. And those documents, if it is going to be phased, need to be part of the application.
Okay, understood. I can find the note from the developer. I'm not sure at this time if they're going to try and build it all out at once or not.
I'm wondering, this reminds me a bit of our walkthrough of Barrington Shores, and what we hear about the dark green part being left. That doesn't necessarily mean it will be particularly good visual buffering. You said mature vegetation, which means older trees, which probably don't have much foliage on the lower part. So I wonder if we should be heading towards, I know you alluded to a landscape plan, but perhaps an element of that landscape plan should include a maintain to visual buffering standard. And on a different note, while I'm covering things here, I wonder if the sidewalk can connect entirely to the west in some fashion around building 15. For bicyclists or pedestrians who might not want to be walking at the edge of Route 125 or 9.
Oh, I guess I'm trying to find where building 15 is. The
Bottom left corner.
Closer to the left, yeah, 8 acres.
yeah, I don't see that being a problem. We can certainly at least send it, to building 11. And then if there's any future roads that go that way, it could be added to.
All right, where would that connection be? Would it be going straight west, or would it go south along the edge of your border, building 15 and the neighboring property?
I believe it would stay in line with the existing sidewalk now, so pick up on the other side of the parking spaces towards building 11.
Continuing west. Okay. What about the premise of maintaining to a certain visual buffering standard?
I'm not sure exactly what that means, to be honest with you. I guess a little
That
explanation.
means
Certainly the intent is to leave everything there. I think it might be good maybe for people to see, because there is some very nice mature vegetation there. Maybe a site walk, maybe, if the planning board's doing those. I'm not sure.
I'm open to that.
And again, a landscape plan will be provided as I stated.
Okay.
Hey, question, and Marcia, I don't know or John, if you know the answer to this, but so with all of these units, I mean, in 2-bedroom units, we have to assume there are children there. Would they have to walk over to the middle school if, if you have children living in this complex?
The school department is the one who arranges for transportation, and I don't believe there are any walkers in the town of Barrington right now. So until sidewalks are constructed, which is in the 10-year plan now, I hope everyone saw that, and our project at that point. But right now, like I said, the town of Barrington does not have what you would call walkers.
Okay, thanks.
So if that's the case, there'd be buses going in there. I don't see a turnaround. As you know, buses aren't allowed to back up. They're only allowed to go forward motion. Is that something that you're planning to do, or am I missing that on the plan?
They could drive around the route like any other truck would.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. Thank you. I think they would go around the loop, similar to where I live here on Deer Ridge and Village Place. The bus actually comes in, goes around the cul-de-sac, and then picks up the children. I think in this instance, they would probably come in, go around the loop, and actually the mail kiosk is the perfect place for a bus stop. All the kids could congregate there, wait for the bus, and then they could leave. It's a controlled stop too.
I think you would have to check with the bus company on how they do it, though, because this is going to be private. And I'm not sure in Barrington, usually they unless there's special conditions, only utilize the public roads. So I'm not sure, but that's a good question. And there certainly may be children. I don't anticipate that there are going to be many, because traditional, they are not in this type of housing. And I believe you said most of these are 2-bedroom.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. They traditionally have a low child count, as opposed to a traditional home. They have lower counts.
But you do have to count for it, because there are single parents. There's a lot of single parent families now. So we do have to take that in consideration. And those children who go to the ECLC part days, they have the little buses that come in and out that will not be able to meet at the end of that road. They'll have to come in. Something to consider.
Correct, but I'm not sure what that will be and that's up to the bus company for how they will do the access.
In the past subdivision, like we said, Village Place, the buses were going in there and going around that loop, but it was still a private road before the town picked it up because it was built to a standard and maintained.
So they may do that. Okay.
What's the requirement to take over a road, though? It has to be 50 foot right away, right?
Correct, but this is, well, not necessarily, but this is intended to remain private.
Correct.
In that question about the 50-foot right-of-way, you said that's allowed to leave buffer, but having the right-of-way, but leaving the road the same width, how does that impact the buffer if you were just increasing the right-of-way but not changing the width of the road, is what you had said?
The problem, Mr. Chairman, was that with the right-of-way itself, based on the regulations, you still have a 40-foot front setback. So if you widen the right-of-way, what it did is it pushed building 1 and 2 right up against the setback on the external property line. So it was a lot closer to the abutters.
Well,
Regulation,
now,
yeah.
seeing as now that we're at that point, so I'll ask the question. I was looking at, the table, which is in the subdivision regulations, but it's referenced in the site review regulations. And when I'm looking at it, for a minor access / private road, then the right of way is 30 feet. Now, that's why I was asking why we were going for the major access. The only reason I could see is that minor access is defined as less than 200 trips per day. And if I recall correctly, during the week, the daily trips were 434, Scott? Is that correct? That's correct.
Yeah,
So,
that's correct. That's why we were anticipating a major.
Okay, so the question though is, vehicles today, the general standard, but where this is a private road, the question is whether that the trip standard is necessarily applicable, or where this is where it's specifically listed under private road as being 30-foot right away, does the 50-foot necessarily apply?
I think it's certainly up to interpretation. I would rather be safe than sorry and ask for it. If it's not needed, that's perfectly fine.
And I would agree. That was one of those dimensions, so to speak, that, it applies in one spot, but maybe not another. And it's best to just ask for the waiver, I think, and have no doubts.
I think it keeps everything much cleaner because the trips per day does go over. I think if you didn't address it, then you kind of leave the water murky.
Yeah.
But is it to this point, in the village district, 2.2.3-2, development of this district should promote an environment that facilitates pedestrian access both within the village district as well as adjoining zoning districts. So to me, sidewalks on the side of the road, at least for sure, the drive, are absolutely necessary. I don't know if I think 3 feet accomplishes it in my mind. So I don't think going narrower, really necessarily gives you the room to do everything you need to do if you're going to provide, the pedestrian access that the regulations require.
If you actually look at the plan, he is giving you the road width in the walkway that meets those dimensional requirements, and he has it all in the 30-foot right of way. So it doesn't change the usage in the middle of the road. He's still supplying all that minimum requirement that's asked for. He was just asking for that right of way setback to be smaller. And because of the town of Barrington's regulations, even though it's a private road and they own the underlying land, that front setback is based on the edge of the right of way. It's not based on a property line.
Right, but John, to me, we show 1 3-foot sidewalk on, I guess that's the west side. The road agent said something which I agree with. You have, attractive nuisances or traffic ways both directions, one toward the middle school and one toward the pizza places, the Burger Kings and all that kind of stuff. I think you have potential for pedestrian traffic going out of this development going in both directions. So I don't think I feel comfortable with, a paved walkway on one side. I think to me,
But the sidewalks on Route 9 will be provided by the state, and they have now been added to the 10-year plan because they're going to require, granite curbing and concrete sidewalks. I don't think we can push this upon this particular developer when we've got it in our 10-year plan and it's a state road.
No, for me,
So I think they're
I'm talking about sidewalk on both sides of the driveway.
Both sides. I'm not sure that the amount of traffic inside a residential development like this would necessitate it on both sides of the road, but I'd like to hear the opinion from Scott too on that. Obviously, he didn't put it in, but.
My concern is that they go up to the west side and they cross over right on Route 9 to go the other direction. And I'd rather have them cross over on the other side in the development for safety purposes.
So, yeah, so wouldn't the compromise be to, you could have a sidewalk on the other side of the road, but only do it at the exit portion between building 2, and then they'd be crossing over inside the development and not out on Route 9 at the entrance. I agree that that's potentially a problem if people are trying to cross the driveway, given the amount of traffic that's on Route 9, people trying to get in and out. What are you looking?
If I can just make a comment, but if the projected future is a sidewalk along Route 9, then how is that any different from somebody leaving Milo's and going to the school? They're going to have to cross it as well. They're not going to go in the project and then go back out. I mean, we can put a painted crosswalk if that's what you want, but a sidewalk on the other side won't make any difference. And this being a private project, they can walk down the road if they choose to get to the sidewalk on the other side.
No, what we're saying is, Scott, is what Jeff is talking about is what I'm looking at. We're building 2 goes out to Route 9 on that side.
Yeah.
A sidewalk there gives kids an opportunity to cross over the road or the driveway inside the project before they get to the, Route 9, where you could have potentially have traffic coming off, a car coming off of Route 9 fairly quickly, so they wouldn't have somebody, hitting them from behind. And once they're in the development, they're going to slow down. So I think crossing over down by building 2 is way safer than trying to have them cross over right on the entranceway.
Okay. Yeah, we thought green space was most important at the entrance, but we can, if you require or request a sidewalk portion from basically the end of building 2 to Route 9, I don't think that's a major option. I can check with the developer on that.
I'm delighted that there's sidewalks at all and that they would connect to the west is wonderful. I would like, and ideally it would go to the east as well somewhere. And I guess, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so as far as the size of the right-of-way goes, this, something like what's shown seems probably adequate to me in the foreseeable future. I guess the question to me is, down the road, so to speak, as time goes by, if these get redeveloped differently, if would there be space to add that later? I guess would be one question.
Are you talking along Route 9?
No. To add a sidewalk on the east side of your driveway heading towards Route 9.
I think if it gets redeveloped, you'd look at it at that time because all the infrastructure would have to change for a redevelopment.
Yeah.
I guess that's the intent of having a big right of way, is to make sure nothing will be in the way in the future if you need something later.
But again, I understand that, but this is going to be all private. I think you're looking at it as a public right away, and this would be private. So if it became public, it'd be a whole new submission for a use to the town.
Right, and I think that's the problem, is that potentially is that if there's a business failure and it becomes dumped on the town, so to speak, and it with a project of this size, and say it's the town is the situation arises where the town has to take it over and it wasn't built to that standard, we're then forced to, okay, well, we let it go, so what do we do? I think that's the concern by allowing the narrower setback.
Jamie, I just want to point out, the town of Barrington would not take over this private development.
No.
I mean, I'm 99% sure that would never, there'd be no reason for them other than if it gets tax deeded. It's not, then these aren't public right of ways. They're not intended to be. In the other cases, we've taken property because it's been tax deeded, or we've taken a road, but we've never taken what I would call a commercial development.
Right, so this would be we're talking about the road.
Well, it'd be the whole infrastructure
Sure.
that they would have to take. And if they took the whole infrastructure, the use is going to be the same. So just because the town takes it over is not going to change the use. And the only way the town would get involved is if it was actually backed into a wall because of non-tax. Then they would take it and they would sell it to the highest bidder just to put it back on the tax rolls. The town would never take over ownership and start trying to run this as a business. It would be totally against everything the town wants to do.
Yeah.
Right, but these aren't rentals, right?
It's still.
I believe they're condos.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
I'm
irrelevant.
I'm thinking like a long pond where the road becomes deteriorated, and because the business is run poorly, and now the road is in disrepair, and they come crying to the town saying, why isn't this road up to standards? And they say, well, because it was mismanaged funds for 80 plus units and all these. Then we sit there and we do what we do for Longshore and say nothing, we can't do anything, right?
Yeah, this is a site plan. This is a site plan. This isn't a subdivision where the road is basically a separate entity. This is all together. So I think the fears of us taking this over, the road over because of lack of maintenance, are probably unfounded. Or
in order for the town to get involved, that means all 80 units, which are condominiumized, they all went bankrupt at the same time to where the town's left holding the bag. That's almost impossible to happen. I mean, you might have one or two people that won't do it, but the major portion of this will always stay intact.
The other aspect of right-of-way width that could come up as time goes by is the perceived or real need for turn lanes or a straight lane. There are times when Route 9 gets quite busy, and if you wanted to make a left, you could be waiting quite a while. And so that could mean that people wanting to leave this development might wait quite a while for people who want to turn left if they had the option of getting out of the way to the right on a separate lane, then that would ease some congestion.
I would not be surprised if something like similar to that is part of DOT's driveway permit. I think we'll wait and see, but turning lanes and whatnot, that would be all part of the driveway permit for this particular. What they decide to do is up to DOT.
I thought in the letter that DOT came back with in response to the application, they'd actually asked them.
If I can respond.
A couple of things. One is that, as far as whether to put that sidewalk on the east side of the entrance from building 2 out, I'll just, my 2 cents worth is it either gets done now or it will never get done. So if it doesn't get done when they're doing the construction of the project, once they start selling the condos, those people are not going to want to pay for putting the sidewalk in. So that's, I just want to make that comment. Second, though, with respect to the right of way, one of the things that we need to be aware of, though, is if we're considering this to be a major access, if we want to waive the 50 feet, we've got to be very specific. Well, I guess the question is, what was the intent of the waiver? Because if you look at the differences, there, a major access, in addition to the traffic being a criteria, for instance, maximum dwelling units served at dead end. Well, you can have 35 if it's a major access, but only 4. And when I look down at building 11 and 15 or 18, then that would seem that we can't be a minor access, or that would violate the requirements for no more than 4 units on a dead end. Another issue is, Scott, what's the width of the pavement that you?
It's 24 feet wide.
Okay, so for major access is 22, so that criteria is good. So with respect to things being clean, it's not only going to be cleaner if we consider it to be major access and waive the right of way, if that's what we want to do. But it probably is good to consider it minor access, because we're going to get across the breakers with maximum number of dwelling units on a dead end if we don't.
I don't know as though I followed all that. I don't think we're going to waive it as a minor or major, right? I think if that's what you're saying, the assumption is if we waive the right of way width, we're automatically assuming that it's a minor access.
We're assuming that it's a major access if we have to waive the requirement, because if it were a minor access / private, then it already, the right of way is only 30 feet and a waiver, wouldn't be needed.
Got you. All right. Yeah, I think it's obvious that it's major, in my opinion.
And Scott, I hate to keep on piling on pedestrian access, but that is one of the specific requirements of the village district. To me, if you do a 24-foot road and 3-foot sidewalks on both sides, you're already up to 30 right there. And to me, the right way to do sidewalks is not butt them right to the curb, because when they get plowed, when the plowing happens, they cover the walkway. So I think there should be, some space between the road and the walkway, so when the plowing does happen, the walkway is still accessible.
Hmm.
Scott, didn't you say there is going to be a green space between the sidewalk and the road?
Yes, there is. There's a 5-foot green space. It's a little hard to see at the scale, but there's a 5-foot green strip between the two. So I guess just to explain to the board, we were really trying to, pull the buildings in to appease the abutters. There's certainly plenty of parking room. So my 2 choices were for a waiver, either ask for a reduced right-of-way, which we have done because we thought it would be cleaner. The other option, which I guess we could discuss with the board, is to leave the 50-foot right-of-way and ask for a reduced front setback just for those 4 buildings, which would leave them in their location. So instead of a 40-foot front setback, we would have a 30-foot front setback just for those buildings. That way it leaves the same amount of green space for the abutters and would be a 50-foot right-of-way. Those were the 2 choices I really had.
I see another option, because I think where they're talking about the 2 sidewalks is just a section of road that comes in before you get to the buildings. So you could do the 50-foot coming in till you get to the buildings, and then go down to 30 when you get in, because then you actually got a road going off both directions with the 30-foot right-of-way at that point. And if you're only doing the sidewalks on 2 sides on that little strip of land going out to Route 9, that's the only area where you would need the wider right-of-way, and everything else could work. I think that's a third option.
Good option. That's actually makes sense.
Well, John, question, if this is a private road, do the setback necessarily apply in that case?
Yes, they do. And zoning defines your front setback from the right of way, not from the property line. We have a lot of private roads around the lake where the road actually goes through the person's own property and they got to set back the 40 feet from the right of way that goes through their property, which might be 100 feet from their front property line because of the way our regulations are written.
So Scott, let me ask you a question. So if with a 50-foot right of way, could those first couple buildings not meet the rear setbacks if you met the front setbacks?
They could meet him, Mr. Chairman, but they were literally right on the setback line. And that was certainly a negative aspect from both the abutters on each side at the design review. They were outspoken about it. So we really tried to do our best to pull the buildings away from their property lines.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned, you know, what Steve was talking about, which is that there may need to, we may decide, particularly if we do a sidewalk, that based on the mature trees there may need to be additional vegetative buffer there. And if they do, the more space between those buildings and the setback from the property line, the better.
Well, if we do
So-
Sean's suggestion though, why would that be an issue?
I think it wouldn't be. I
It
think
wouldn't be.
It's a nice compromise.
And the planning board wouldn't be able to waive that front setback. It would actually take a zoning board thing because the setback's written in zoning, not in your subdivision or site review regulations.
Oh, okay.
I happen to be a landscaper, and so if I look at, you know, building 1 and building 2, and I know that the sun comes from the south, and I know that these buildings are going to have some height to them, and you can't necessarily control what happens on the neighboring properties as far as the height of trees and how much shading they're providing or what structures they might build, although there is, of course, some setbacks involved for them too. I tend to wonder if there will be, if it would be very practical or doable or cost effective to have much foliage at the height it needs to be in some of those spaces.
I think it will be more helpful when we actually have the landscape plan too. For the,
Does the board seem amendable to the 50-foot right of way for the first section up to building 1 and 2, and then the 30 feet from there in?
I would be okay with that.
I'm amenable to that.
All right. So
I want
Mr.
to follow up
Cole?
on something that Steve said though. Height of the building. Scott's presentation, he calls this a 3-story building. John and Marsha, is this really a 3-story building? The full basement?
The
No basement.
basement area is kind of like the drive under garage. So it's like a 2-story building above that drive under garage, which creates it as the 3-story. But if you look at the building renderings, when we get to that later on. So I think you said Jason wanted to go over the building renderings later.
Okay, because we only allow 2.5 stories in the village. Yes.
Yeah, but I think that's not including the basement if you read the regulations. I can go back and read them, but I'm pretty sure that's what it says.
Okay, we only allow 2.5
A
stories.
walkout
so that's-
basement doesn't count as a full story, which is kind of what this would be because of the drive under garage type setup.
Okay,
Are they
just
though?
checking.
But they walk out on both sides, which wouldn't make them necessarily walk out, are they? I didn't hear you, John.
I'm going to go in and find the building rendering and we can bring it up. But I thought Jason was going to go over that a little bit later, but I'll bring it up now.
Scott, what's the distance between Route 9 and where you get to the edge of the parking lot in front of Building 2 and whatever? Looks to be about 100 feet.
Yeah, 160 feet.
Oh, 160 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we could do is waive the requirement beyond 160 feet off of Route 9. Is that what people are suggesting?
Waive the requirement beyond that first. Is that what you said?
Yeah, beyond the first 160 feet.
Correct.
Let the 50-foot stay in place for the first 160 feet.
I think that's what I'm thinking. Yes, Jeff.
Scott, do you think that's acceptable?
Yeah, I think that's certainly something we can do.
I want to follow up on there was something I saw that the pavement sweeping was going to be done once a year or twice a year, and then in parentheses it said town. What does that mean?
It should not say town. If it does, I apologize. It would be privately maintained.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess its recommendation is to accept the application of substantially complete.
My recommendation is you accept it as complete, understanding that you still need that landscape plan. But
So I guess yeah, we'll have to talk about the illumination plan once we accept it. I got a question. Normally in situations where we have a development where people are responsible within the development for maintaining the infrastructure, primarily in this case, the drainage systems, that we get copies of the draft agreements, and I didn't see that as part of the package.
should be in your, well, at least the stormwater management plan was in.
Yes, I got the stormwater management plan, but typically we see the agreements that the homeowners, the condominium owners are going to have to sign up to.
We'll need those, yeah, draft condominium.
Right, that isn't part of my package. Has it been submitted?
I'm not aware of that yet.
Okay.
The condominium documents.
Right.
Typically, we develop them after, in as part of the process.
Okay, but we'll see those prior to approval.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll make sure those are being worked on.
Yeah, because there need, that takes a little bit of time because we got to get the town attorney to take a look.
Okay.
All right. Would we like to?
Now, do we have to accept the waiver before we accept the application, Marcia?
No, in this instance, you can do the waiver after. Okay. The other thing is they'll be looking to have this sent to Du Bois and King too, I believe.
Yep.
Please.
All right. So if we have a motion to accept the application as complete.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept 238-36-V-20-SR as complete.
Second.
Motion by Jeff Brand, seconded by Ron Allard. Steve Diamond,
Diamond eye.
Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Ron Allard,
Allard, aye.
Jeff Brand,
Grant, aye.
James Jennison, aye. The application is accepted as complete. All right, more questions and comments from the board before we open public comment?
Oh, yeah, you bet.
I would like to make one, you would give me a chance here because it refers to the stuff that Ron was just bringing up. Okay,
Yep.
So I brought the rendering up. In the regulations, I missed it when I looked at this earlier. Residential use in the village district is 2.5 stories and 35 feet, where in the neighboring district and also the commercial use is 3 stories and 40 feet. So I was just thinking the 3 stories was allowed. So if you look at that in zoning, and then zoning defines the basement level is not a story unless the ceiling is more than 6 feet above grade. So you would have to consider that a 3-story building. So in order for that 3-story building to be in this district, they're going to need zoning board relief. I missed it. I was looking at the 40 feet and the 3 story. I just thought I'd bring it up now. Seeing as Jeff pointed out.
Well, while we're on that vein, in the village district, wouldn't this require a conditional use permit, which I didn't see as part of the application?
For residential use, no,
For site plan?
Multifamily? Let me check the chart. So I'm looking at Article 19. It says multifamily housing, village. Multifamily housing. Says CP, note 6, so conditional use permit. Number 6, no structure may contain more than 8 dwelling units, which these don't. But
Yeah, so,
Article 19 requires a conditional use permit.
Article 19 in the zoning?
Yep. Look on page 93.
It's table of uses.
Yeah.
It's an allowed use, correct?
So, yeah, what it
So
says, it requires that if it's over, if it's over 6 story, I mean, 8 dwellings.
No. It says it can contain more than 8 dwellings. But it says that a conditional use permit is required for multifamily housing in the village district.
Where are you getting this from?
A table of uses.
Table of uses, page 1, page 93 of the zoning ordinance. Third one down under use residential, multifamily housing. On village, it says CP. And it says note 6, and note 6 says you can't have more than 8 dwelling units in one structure.
We don't.
I know, so you
In
need
one
that
structure.
requirement,
Well,
but the table says that a conditional use permit is required.
Yeah, technically Jeff is right. Once you hit the CP, if you go to the beginning of zoning, it says if there's a CP there, it's a conditional use. I was looking at that as it's conditional use if you needed more than the 8 units, but that's actually not what the regulation says. Because if you go to, here we go. Table, if you go to 3.2 parentheses 4, it says that if it has a CP, you need the conditional use. It doesn't say that it's the conditional use that goes along with the number. So the conditional use is required, but they're also noting that the building can't exceed 8 units.
Right.
and the permitted is in town center.
Oh, this is actually town center or village? This is village,
This is
right?
village.
Yeah. So when you go to the village, that's where it kicks into that, and that's where the regulations for the 2.5 stories kicks in too. If it was town center, that goes away. The 2.5 stories, because it goes to 3.
And I just wanted to add, and I guess this will come into further discussion and whatever has to happen down the road. My conversation with the fire chief who brought it to me is he no longer sees the height restriction as necessary. It came about because of concern about having enough fire support, and he feels at this point there's enough ladder trucks through mutual aid that's no longer a concern, the height of the building.
Yeah, Rick had mentioned to me over a year ago that could come out of our zoning, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's more to height of buildings than just some visual aesthetics and
But
That's
this
public
decision on
language.
the 3 stories is up to the planning, up to the zoning board now, because it's in zoning, it's not in your site review regulations.
All right, so with this hiccup, where we stand now?
Yeah, I think this is probably a big, this 2.5-story thing is probably significant impact of the project. What do you guys want to do now?
Well, not only that, they got to file for a conditional use permit, and there has to be a public hearing on that, correct, Marcia?
Correct.
But
I
they
mean-
can make that part of your, they can make that as part of your planning board hearing in the, like your next meeting.
Yeah,
Or what, you know,
the conditional use permit can be part of the planning board hearing for the,
but if they want to stay with 3 stories, they're gonna have to go to the zoning board. If they can modify it to 2.5, they wouldn't have to, I guess is where we're at. But you, like Jeff said, you still gotta read the conditions of that conditional use too. So if you have an issue with the 3-story thing, and it's gonna affect your decision in the conditional use, you probably ought to let the applicant know now how you feel, because that might affect your decision in the future. And then also the zoning board might want to see how you guys feel, because they're going in for it with the abutting zone. It actually allows a 3-story. So there's that, you know, and this is like the lot right on the edge of the zone. If it was 1 lot farther over, it would actually be in the other district.
It's quite an imposing structure. I mean, I think it would be. If I was living next to it, I would not be thrilled.
It might be worth you guys taking a few minutes looking at your conditional use permit, so you can give the applicant a direction on how you feel about it. You know, the requirements for the conditional use.
Well, Rick,
Oh, actually, you might be better off to have him make the application, then he can give his reasons why, and you could address it that way.
yeah, you have to do that. You have to answer all the questions under the conditional use.
Mhm. And I think this is compared to the prior, we had a similar application. Those were built into the back of, if you remember the one out on Route 9, those units were built into the back side of the hill. So they only had two stories.
Right,
Right.
right. That was a true walkout, as opposed to this is a full story.
Yeah.
Especially when you read the definitions on what we consider stories that's in the zoning.
Hopefully this isn't too much of a changing of subject. Those of you on the planning board saw this in your email, but I thought it might be a good time to read Andy Knapp's relevant comments related to this particular agenda item. He says, I question this meeting the spirit and intent of our regulation, especially from a traffic standpoint, knowing the added units going in just down the road by the middle school. I think the load for this site is excessive and would look forward to understanding how cramming that many units into the space works. This is a project that we would want to make sure we are providing guidance about our architectural standards on. Based on the limited items I've seen, it doesn't fit the rural character of our community. I really question its ability to meet DOT needs. That's Andy Knapp, ex officio's comments on this.
I'm sorry, I lost track. Have we accepted this as complete yet or not?
We accepted the.
I do not
We
believe
accepted we accepted the application as complete.
Did you? I didn't think you did, but.
Oh, I got a motion and a second. Did I not do a vote? Maybe I got.
Jeff, you made the motion. I seconded it.
Well, I think, yeah. So the question was, I don't think we've had a vote yet, right? I think we were going to, and you said if there were any additional questions.
Well, I think someone interjected with a question before I had a chance, because I do have a motion by Jeff Brand and a second by Ron Allard to accept this application as complete.
But I don't think we voted yet. And the question is, now that it's come up about there would need to be, to maintain the 3 stories, then have to go before the zoning board. Now we've identified, and I'm sorry I didn't bring this up earlier, but I had written myself a note that there needs to be a conditional use that's associated with this application. I guess I do have a couple other things that probably are going to muck up the works. I mean, where do we proceed from here?
I think we can also defer back to the applicant to see how he would want to proceed
Yeah.
also.
Before we accept the application as complete, because this whole issue with the 2 stories versus 2.5 versus 3, I mean, that's not an insignificant issue. I think we can come through the conditional use permit, but I mean, these, if you got to go before the zoning board, then I think that Scott's got to go back to the developer and ask some questions.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Scott?
I'd like the opportunity to do that. You know, obviously, we certainly didn't think that was a requirement for this project. I do believe if I had to take an educated guess, the zoning board may rely or ask for an opinion of the planning board. So I guess I need to at least get a straw poll or opinion of the board's feeling of the plans that were submitted, if they think that they're acceptable or not. On the design of the building, I should say.
I think that's fair. I guess I'll start. I'm not opposed to the design. I would like to see, I think, color variations in the buildings, just to present some sort of contrast, so it's not one big, massive, housing complex. It's all kind of cookie cutter. If we had, I think if there was some differentiators between buildings, that always, to me, looks nicer. That's my 2 cents.
Yep.
I'll let Donna, start with you, and then we'll work through everyone to give their opinion.
I agree with you, Jamie. It's elongated. It's not, to me, it's not attractive. And I also think that we should stand by not having the 3-story. I really do. We do have the place going across from the middle school, sorry. There's going to be a lot. I think we really need to step back and think about this totally, about our community, what we're here for, and how we do want to grow, but how do we want to grow? So I would definitely be more than willing to look at another, plan, less units in one section, and bring it down to the 2-story requirement.
Steve?
I'm not sure I could fully articulate what the architectural standards are. I know it's been a topic of discussion we've had. To me, I agree with Andy in the sense that I don't think it quite fits with the rural character of our town. In terms of it being quite so imposing and just a box. Yeah, there's some detail that make it more interesting, and that's an improvement. But they're pretty intense. And just to remind you, I know you're going to address this in the landscape plan, but outdoor space with this number of people, I still have concerns around. Viable outdoor space, pavilions, picnic tables, grass, places for people to be that aren't just inside.
Thank you, Steve. Ron?
Yeah, for me, actually, I think the design is not, to me, I don't have a problem with the design. I think they look pretty good, actually. The only question I have, and this is not required, how big is the driveway in front of the garage?
23 feet long.
How wide is it, Scott?
20.
20. Okay, that's good. I don't, it's not required on the regulations, but I have a problem where you can't put 2 cars in the you block a car in when you pull one behind. I think that causes all kinds of problems. The person that gets home first, the person who leaves first in the morning, usually everyone's a 2-car family now. So as long as you can get by them, I think that's a good move.
Thank you, Ron. Jeff?
Marcia, do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I just want to bring this to your attention because we're talking about architectural renderings and all that, and the look. And I understand how everyone's saying, but I want to add the regulations do not apply unless you're within, well, let's put it this way. If you're back from the center line of Route 9, and you're within 150 feet of that, the architectural portion of it applies. It does not apply once you get outside that 150 feet from Route 9.
Thank you.
It's just from a regulatory standpoint. I just wanted you to remember what the rule was in regards to that.
Sure. Jeff, what's your take on things?
I guess I'm feeling a lot like some of the other comments that I've heard. It just seems, just my opinion, from a design standpoint, too boxy. And I think it is, we've got to come through the 2-story versus 3-story. I'm inclined to want to stick with the requirement, but that's really up to the zoning board. So that's with respect to design. I'll just, say that once we finish this discussion, before we kind of move on or Scott makes a decision, I got a couple other things I'd like to throw out. So.
All right. I don't know if Scott, that gives you a good feel, Scott, as far as where the board sits. I mean, if it was 3 units, that size, might be, but it's a massive undertaking for giant buildings upon giant buildings. So, Jeff, you want to? Yep.
Yeah, I had a couple of
comments.
I had a couple other things that I wanted to know while we're having this discussion about things that would need to change with respect to what's been submitted with the application. One is that the lighting plan, if you go back in regulations, you have to demonstrate for looking at these elevations in particular, if there's any lighting on the buildings, where their shadow areas are or illumination areas are, and showing that you meet the standards in the table for illumination, that those things are required, and the plan that was submitted for a lighting plan doesn't meet those standards. The other thing is a question, and I guess I was reading what the Conservation Commission had. I looked at the test pit data, and I'll ask the question, which is that the 3 septic leach fields that are up close to the complex, that are between the complex and the wetland area. I mean, those test pits showed that, water level was seen at, 33 inches. Maybe one of them was, I don't know, less than that. And whereas the ones out back, you've got 2 other, in that large area out back, you've got 2 test pits, you've got 2 leach fields that show, the water table is down 55 plus inches. And given the close proximity with those that septic leach fields are to that wetland area. So what is the answer of why not just move all of the septic leach fields out to the back end of that lot?
We let you look at that after receiving the comment from the Concom, and the reason being is the gallons per day and the effluent going to the system, with the 3 the way they are moved out back, the nitrate loading setbacks through DES would go off the property, which is not allowed. So the only way to actually fit the 5 systems is to have the 3 centrally located, so the nitrate setback stays on the premises. And then we divide what was left over into 2 systems out in the rear. And I can provide a schematic that would show that nitrate setback, but it pretty much envelops the majority of the lot, because they're not allowed. If you have a nitrate setback that envelopes another nitrate setback, the actual setbacks compound each other and get much, much larger. So that's why we had to have them so far apart. But I can certainly show you something in the future that displays that nitrate setback.
Okay.
Where, I see the 3, where are the other 2?
There are 2 located out in the rear in the open space, relatively back in the lot. They were on a separate page.
Oh, okay. I guess it begs the question when it's, and the loading is so tight, if you will, is that an indicator that it's too much on too small a piece?
It makes the state criteria. I mean, that's what we're held to.
All right, does the board have any more questions? I think we'll open up public comment just so we can get any input. No objections there. We'll open up public comment at this time. If there's anyone out there.
Okay, I just got a procedural question where we have made a motion but have not actually accepted the application. That's understood before we go to public comment. Are we going to take some action, or are we going to wait till after public comment to take an action on the motion to accept the application?
You can't deliberate on it unless you accept it as an application.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
That's the problem that we're running into.
I think there's a question too, whether the applicant wants to go forward right now.
Right, yeah, so do we want to, with the caveat that we can still open things up for public comment, but I think that Scott needs to give us a response of where he feels at representing the applicant at this point in time.
If I may ask, Jason White, are you on the conference? Jason, are you available?
Jason, if you're on the phone, you got to do *6 in order to be able to talk. On the computer, you can just go to your mic. I'm not sure. I don't see your name up on the computer, so I'm assuming you're on a phone. *6 will unmute you.
And while we're waiting for him, I will, Barbara has confirmed that we did do a vote on the application, accepting the application as complete. Not that.
Okay.
If you accepted the application as complete, then you can consider, you can continue deliberation and take public comment.
I'd still like.
Appreciate hearing the butters.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll keep going and see if Jason White can ring in at some point. So at this time, we will open public comment. And if there's anybody out there that has comments, please speak up.
Also, if you're on a computer, you can go across the screen. If you see the little hand, you can print that, and that way Jamie can recognize you if you'd like to talk.
And if you're on the phone, it's *69 to unmute. *6, sorry.
Well, I know Rick was on earlier. He said he had a question later.
If there's anyone we ignored and they want to ask a question later, we'd be certain to take your questions. But I guess at this time we'll close public comment, and I guess Scott will ask you, how would you like to proceed at this point?
Well, I certainly have some homework to do. If
Jamie,
possible.
can you hear me?
Yes, Rick.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got a call and I was on the call, then I went back to the phone, and I've been trying to unmute it here for like 10 minutes.
All right, well, let me quickly open public comment again for you, and go ahead with your question.
So nothing's really changed, Rick, since you were on the board, is what you're saying.
Well, you know, it's changed a little. We're all on the phone.
Yeah, do you have it? What do we got, Rick?
Well, I had a few questions. The septic system. Is there, since the buildings are so far apart and spread out all over the lot, is there some sort of an ejection pumping system or a house in there? Or are you depending upon a flow from gravity from the building number one all the way to the field?
Mr. Cole, is there a pump system or is it a gravity-fed septic?
Oh, there is. That's actually a very good question. There'll be actual, typically there'll be E1 or smaller pump systems for each building. So it would be a pressurized system. So that'll actually pressurize the flow and force it to the septic systems themselves.
So you have an ejection system then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then the other thing that I heard talked about was where the fields are located in relation to maybe overloading the ground. Has anybody thought about the fact that we're in a drought, and when you dug your test pits this year, the water table is going to naturally be lower anyway?
I can actually respond to that.
Yeah, there's a.
Yeah, we actually had a soil scientist do the test pits, and
okay.
I know this is a normal question that comes up. The natural, the seasonal high water table is actually not based on the water. It's based on modeling in the soils. So the estimated seasonal high water table is actually based on historic data in the soils, being rust spots or an organic layer or something like that. So it's actually a test pit data is not actually deprived of water level in an actual hole.
Right, I understand. It's the content of the soil, and they dig down and they analyze it. But I guess the point is, at some point you do hit water. How deep did they dig their pits?
I would have to actually, I don't have the data in front of me. That they usually go, to the extent of the machine. It's usually 6 or 7 feet deep.
Yeah,
and that's usually like, to. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Go ahead. Finish what you're going to say.
The reason why they do that is even though if they have a higher water table, we have to make sure that we're 6 feet away from ledge. So they always go down at least 6 or 7 feet to make sure there is no ledge there to meet state criteria.
Okay.
I will point out that except for the 2 test pits that were done on the back of the lot for those 2 additional fields, the other test pits were actually done 5/21/2020. So they were done back in May, and I think that's before we hit the critical point with respect to the drought.
The drought.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I was struggling with trying to understand this 30-foot right of way and all that sort of thing. When I'm looking at the print from Route 9 going into the lot, it looks like on my print it says 80 feet. Is that from the widest point at the road? That's the 80 feet?
Mr. Cole, can you explain the relevance of the number, the 80-foot number? I don't see it. Out in the road, Rick?
It's on sheet 1 of 2, and it shows Franklin Pierce Highway, Route 9. Then it shows the entrance road going into Building 1 and Building 2.
So would that be the width of the entrance, Scott?
Let me see if I can pull up my plans and find out exactly where he's speaking of.
Yeah.
It's 80. Yeah, it's 80.57, and
then I know there's a 30-foot right-of-way up between the buildings. That's where I'm getting confused about the 30 feet and 50 feet. I don't know where the 50 came from.
Oh, that David Vincent, their surveyor, is breaking out the mathematical distances. So the 80.57 is the difference, the distance between the end of the curvature for the proposed right-of-way. Has nothing to do with the pavement.
So so if I was to pull in off of Route 9, I have an 80-foot wide area that I can turn right into that roadway. Is that what you're saying?
No, that would be the right-of-way, which is the private property line. The pavement itself is not dimensioned, which is 24 feet wide.
All right, so you don't show the dimension that you have on the roadway then. How wide is that? My driveway's 50 feet wide. How wide is this one?
The right-of-way or the pavement?
If I was to turn into that road, how wide is it?
The right of way would be 30 feet. The pavement is 24 feet.
Okay, so when I turn in, that I could be turning in on soil and not pavement, is that correct?
I think that's yet to be determined. The DOT is going to decide exactly what needs to happen there, but usually it's flared at the end. But the driveway portion, the interior driveway port, the road width is 24
Yeah.
feet. Does that answer
Yeah.
your question?
And it looks like the
Yeah, it-
right-of-way curves to 80 feet where it meets the state road is what that drawing shows. It
That's
shows
right.
the narrow right-of-way, and it's just a flare of the right-of-way that shows 80 feet. It's not the drivable area.
Right. But Rick's
Okay,
question was
that's
how wide is, and it's
Well, my
24.
question is, what's the 80 feet referring to?
The edge of the right-of-way at the curvature.
It's the right of way. So that
Correct.
means that the right of, how close is that driveway to my property line? Reading the print, it looks like it's 54 feet.
The
That's the
right
edge
of
of the
way
curvature.
portion, yes, 54 feet.
Okay, and then the other side is 117.
Correct.
Why isn't the
But that-
roadway in the center? Why does it have to hug my property line, first off? Secondly, not too long ago, you folks did a lot line change and added an additional 20 foot and moved that Haley lot line over 20 feet. Whereas if you left it where it was, of course, it would have been 137 feet there. But now it's 117. So not only did he get more property and more privacy, then he adds on another 30 feet and you get 117 and I'm at 54. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, if it meets the
I don't
requirements.
care, Jason, I don't care what it means. I'm asking them, and I don't mean to be rude. I'm asking them why they're making
Yeah.
the road swerve
But
over closer to my property.
Right, but as you
If
know,
I can
Rick, you
explain
asked
that, Mr.
me, and
Chairman?
I asked them, right?
If I can actually explain the reasoning
Sure.
behind that. What's not
Yeah,
shown
go
on
ahead.
this plan, it's actually shown a little better on the display plan. What's not
Yeah.
shown on the sheet 1 or 2 is the tree line on the opposite side of the road.
Okay.
In order to buffer the abutting neighbor and not have headlights from this project going to their home, we located
Yeah.
the driveway so it hits the tree line across the street, which actually protects the other home across the street from headlights going across the roadway. That's why.
Yeah, okay.
If we
So
put it
as long
right in
as
the
they-
center, it'd be facing
Yeah.
their garage.
How about if you push it and make it 54 feet from the other property line and make mine 117? It's the same thing. That's what you're talking about, headlights.
I think it would
It's
still
not-
be hitting the premise, the other abutting owner.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at it, you can see the driveway for the abutting piece across the street. Where that drive is, that goes into their garage, which is on the right, and then their premises is on the left. So anything,
Yeah.
any area where we put that road, they would get headlight issues. That's why we tried to, and we normally do this, anytime we can, we try to
Yeah.
put the headlights
Yeah.
towards trees.
I know, God forbid they get headlights shining across the road through their buffer, but it's okay for me to have 4 buildings on my 500 feet when people pulling in and out of their driveways with their headlights shining into my backyard. Look at building number 13, I'm trying to read this thing upside down. I think it's building 4, 5, and 6. When these people go down those roads and turn in, between those buildings when they're passing, I'm gonna get light on my property.
Okay, Rick, yeah, if you have a question, Rick, I'll take it, but we can't just have the back and forth dialogue about your dislike. So, I mean, I'm happy to pass along any questions, but,
I get it, Jason, I get it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No.
ask questions that are relevant to me. That's all right.
You
Thank
can-
you very
you
much,
can-
everybody, and have a good day.
Well, I think though that is a good question that Scott, you can address with respect to his property when you address it in the landscape plan to ensure that there's adequate buffering so that headlights are not going through to, to his house when people are coming down the street by buildings 5 and 6.
Yeah, no, we can certainly look at that. rough figure, and I got the plan in front of me now.
And
You know,
is
his-
it
The
considered,
closest building to him is over 200 feet away, and there's mature vegetation in between, so I really don't see that being an issue, but we can look at that.
I mean, and realistically, if you're coming down the road heading into building 6, if you make the long loop heading into building 6 where the headlights would be, they'd be shining against building 6 until you make that curve, and then there would be some light transparency going through, but
Very minimal.
well, the issue would be if you're coming down the street by building 18, 14, and 10, and going, down that way, and you're turning around that corner there, that might be the issue. I would think that building 6 and 5, they would block most of the light pollution, but, there might be an issue between buildings 5 and 6.
Sure.
Location of the street. So there might be an increased buffer, or even, as has been considered in other cases, that there
Right.
could even be a short fence in that area that would be light blocking.
I'd just like to add, while I applaud your inclination to try to make the neighbors happy as much as you possibly can, that's great. It doesn't seem worth it to me to make your main entrance driveway jog to the side for such a narrow motivation. Seems to me you should ideally try to center it in your frontage. I know that across the street it's just a driveway. Who knows, in future redevelopment, there may be a straight through that would be sensible there. And if the road is jogged to the right, that doesn't work anymore.
Steve, this is Ron. I don't agree with that. I think having 400 cars per day driving out and the headlights shining directly at my house right across the street, I think the jog is reasonable and appropriate.
Yeah, I can at least say that, I've actually been doing this for 25 years, and the amount of actual public hearings that I've done, I can't say it's a minor issue. It's a major issue on almost every project. So, I took to try to do this on my own to get rid of the commentary, because I know it would be coming. So we always try to, protect the neighboring people when we can.
I certainly appreciate that. I just know that people have a lot of distractions when they're driving, and if there's extra curves, especially in a spot when they're driving very often, or there's extra people or extra pedestrians in that area, I worry about other complications.
Yep.
all right. So at this point, do we have more questions? And Mr. Cole, how would you like to proceed? Would we like to continue?
I got just a couple more comments for Scott just to pass on. These were relatively minor, so I didn't bring them up before, but just be aware. Scott, on some of the sheets, the legends, like I saw a legend, a detail on I forgot which sheet 12 about the curbing, but then because the legend didn't include on multiple sheets, showing, defining what, the legend didn't reflect the sidewalk. I was having difficulty with that. Sheet 7, you've got water and sewer lines. There's nothing in the legend that defines those. I finally, with a magnifying glass, figured out the W and the S, but so if you could take a look at the legends on the sheets to make sure they incorporate all the details on those particular sheets, that would be appreciated.
Certainly.
I think and I've already discussed the lighting plan and the deficiencies there. So that's all I've.
Okay. I just want to check real quick on the. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Normally we have a master legend on the cover, but this is kind of an abbreviated one, so I will certainly add that data for you.
And Scott, remind me just on the paving sweeping, take out the town.
Excuse me?
Paving, on the paving sweeping, it says.
Oh, yes, yep. Change that to private, thank you.
I'll get to remove that.
So I guess we're down to Scott, what do you want to do at this point?
You want to just continue so you can, would you like to continue so that you can go over all the issues that have come up?
Yes, I know you normally do workshops, but in this case, if possible, I'd like to be continued a full month so we can go and do our homework. I don't believe either of the issues are really engineering related issues. So if possible, I would still like to have the drainage and road criteria and everything looked at by the review engineer. If we could get that sent out, and then we will go back and look at the conditional use and the zoning issues.
So you're looking at November 3rd? November 3rd?
If that's possible.
Yeah, hey, about that, does November 3rd ring a bell with anybody?
Are you?
It's election night, right?
That's a busy day.
So do we really want to schedule a meeting for election night?
I don't know. How long does it take you to vote?
Well, that depends on how long the lines are.
Polls close when?
I thought you were retired and you could do it during the day.
I did it today.
I think they close at 7 typically.
7.
7. Thank you, Barbara.
All right. So I think we can pull it off. Do we have any objections?
I have
That's a
a
good
minor
point,
objection that, if I'm a member of the public and I want to, and I work and I want to make a comment on some of these things on the agenda, that could be a problem for me. If I get home from work and I got to go vote, I may have a trouble, being able to attend this meeting.
I would agree it could impede public participation.
The only problem is our meeting as a whole, not just this particular application. We haven't changed the date of the meeting. I'm not aware of it ever being an issue. I mean, I know it's a fairly big election, but
Do we have
if people know ahead of time.
Do we have other scheduled things already for the 3rd?
Yes, you do.
I think then, I don't think it'd be prudent to try to reschedule those, so.
Well, do we want to move the time back to 7?
Jamie, it will be whatever new cases come in.
So there's nothing scheduled for the 3rd as of now.
Well, the deadline is, I'll have to go look on my calendar. Hold on.
If we want to proceed with the meeting, do we want to delay the start time from 6:30 to 7 to allow the polls close?
I think that would be reasonable. I would hesitate to postpone the entire the meeting. We've never done that before. We've had other elections, so.
Right.
The deadline for November 3rd applications is October 13th.
So we still got another week. So there's no issue with postponing till a 7 o'clock start time, Marcia, that you're aware of?
I would not, as long as we post the meeting for that time.
Does the rest of the board agree with that? I think that's a fair resolution.
I would say so.
I agree.
Ron? Okay, well, let's do that then. We'll do a 7 o'clock. That way we can see Mr. Cole and whoever might come up in a timely fashion. So a motion to continue to November 3rd.
I make a motion to continue application 238-36B 20-SR to November 3rd.
Second.
Motion by Jeff Brand, second by Ron Allard. Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Steve Diamond,
Diamond eye.
Jeff Brand,
Brand aye.
James Jennison, aye. Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
Motion carries. Continue to November 3rd. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Have a
Appreciate
great
the time.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
See you in about a month.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody need a quick break before we just said we don't have much left, but does anybody need a break?
Well, I'm taking one, whether you grant one
All
or not.
right. Steve's got his hand up, so we'll take a quick 5 minutes and we'll be right back.
Now,
What are you talking about? You want the same development? What?
All right. I think we're still waiting on Jeff and John. Ron, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back.
All right, thank you. Just
I can
waiting
see
on.
Jeff's not back. Is Ron on the phone? Are you back, Ron?
Yeah, Ron's back.
So we're just waiting on Jeff.
Not on the phone, John. I'm on the computer.
Just without pictureless.
Yeah, I
computer.
know. I couldn't tell because I can't see your pretty face.
Well, there is
You
no
are
pretty face to
getting
be seen.
really clear.
I am doing it the fancy schmancy way on the computer.
Okay, looks like everybody's back now.
It's nice.
All right. Welcome, Jeff. All right, next up, we have number 5. Pursuant to RSA 4114A, sale of town-owned property, Select Board has a request from Michael and Diane Flatterly from 302 Smoke Street to possibly purchase 1 acre of town property. And the Planning Board has been asked to provide input. So we'll start by, I'll read the proposal. They seek to purchase 1 acre of land behind their property, allow for room for an in-ground pool. See the planner's comments. The concern is setting a precedent that could lead to many requests. There's no extenuating circumstances to justify the sale. There's been requests in the past for the same lot that has not moved forward, and wetlands in the property would trigger the wetland buffer ordinance to become applicable, which would greatly limit the development of the new lot. I'll read the letter. By way of introduction, my name is Michael Flatterly, and me and my wife Diane, we reside at 302 Smoke Street in Barrington near the intersection of Christie Circle. We purchased our home in mid-2016 and love living in Barrington. When we purchased this house, we always had in mind to one day put in an in-ground pool in our backyard directly behind our house. The purpose of this note is to seek your assistance on how to go about possibly purchasing 1 acre of land. This was to Tracy Hardcobb. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. This is a portion of an 80-acre piece that the town owns. So we're all aware of that. So I will open it up to the board for comments, questions, etc.
Steve here. I agree with Andy's comment about $2,000 not really being enough for an acre of land. And when I look at the screen capture they did from the GIS system, it's clear that that cutout of 1 acre would make the town's lot lines more convoluted than they already are. And it's somewhat boxy and straightforward at the moment, and that little jog would make it weirder.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it being a little weirder. I'll point out, this is the first time the town has sold land.
Could you get a little closer to your mic? We can barely hear you again.
I checked my settings and it said that I was max, but anyway, I guess we've sold land before the town to other individuals. I remember TurboCam's building on land they got from the town. So, I mean, I don't know what the inherent objection is to selling the land and why this necessarily sets a precedent. So but I agree that $2,000 sounds like a very small. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
All right, my screen just went blank. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the indication is that it's because it's a larger piece and not selling off the whole chunk to like a TurboCam type scenario for development. It would be just the 1 acre for that dollar figure. I would agree with Andy, and I think that $2,000 certainly is not the going rate for an acre of land.
No, I had friends of mine that tried to do the same thing, and it was approximately the same amount of land in the, it was, and I know the price, it was a new market, but they, the price that the owner asked was many times more than the $2,000.
Yeah, for
I
me,
don't-
without getting into the, whether the town needs this land or the benefit to it, I mean, to me, it's got to be fair market value. So therefore, to me, $2,000 is a non-starter.
And I guess the other question is, would the selling of this land in any way, other than it causes a perturbation in the property line, does this in any way affect the value of that property? If it's going to have a negative effect on the use or development of that property, well, that's another key consideration. If it doesn't, well, then we're down to price, I think.
Well, the guy that wants the land, if you look at it right now, he needs to get zoning board relief to put the pool in the back because of the 30-foot setback. But if you do this lot line adjustment, the wetland buffers kick in. And if you look on the plan that I got up there, the wetlands come right down almost next to his property. So if you put the 50-foot buffer around the wetlands, he's gonna have to come back to the planning board to ask for relief to put the pool in the buffer, instead of going to the zoning board and asking to be closer to his setback. So it really doesn't fix his problem. He's still got to go to a board and ask for relief, even if he gets the land.
That's a good point.
I think it's an excellent point, but to me, I think it comes down to, if you're going to sell land, you got to have somebody in the town say that the land is not required for some future benefit, and then it's got to be a fair market price. I don't think we have either of those in place right now.
And I don't think the boost in tax revenue from going from a 2-acre lot to a 3-acre lot is monetarily and as much of an increase.
Well,
There's also, sorry, go ahead.
Based on what John just said, though, I mean, it would seem the logical thing would be go see if you can get some relief from the ZBA before you go spend money trying to buy additional land.
Yeah. Donna, do you have an opinion?
No.
All right. I think we've
Jamie,
covered
one other
everything.
thing.
Yes,
Marcia? Looking at the GIS map, there is the 80-acre lot that the town owns. There's quite a bit of wetland and waterway in the middle of it that kind of cuts it in two. So it is quite conceivable that even a small amount of land lost in this area could jeopardize its connectivity between one side and the other.
or development potential. All right, is there a letter that we have that to send to the select board, Marcia or John, in regards to our, I think we're all in agreement that we do not support the sale.
I had not done a letter. I would do a memo based upon comments that are in the minutes to send to the board.
All right, I would entertain a motion to send a memo to the select board referencing our comments and our.
So can you specifically I just so if I can list them, other than to say, if you want to say do not, we do not support this as a whole, or do you want to say specific things? I mean, if you don't support it as a whole, that's fine. Too.
For me, Marcia, it's not that I don't support it as a whole. I would be willing to, look into selling of land. But to me, the steps that would be taken, number one, if it's fair market value offer. And number two, I would want somebody in the town to say, we have no conceivable use for that property, and therefore we are okay selling it.
Did you notice, see, my comments to it were based on maybe a little past history or experiences. And the precedent thing is a very big concern to me, only because subsequent people, I'm sure, would like to add a few feet to each of their lots, and we could see this. You do it for one, do you do it for the other type of thing? Unless there's some real reason that it would benefit both the town and because of some kind of building constraint or some kind of easement that's needed. I'm just concerned that you're setting a precedent if you do start doing these.
I'm on the other side of that, Marcia. As Jeff pointed out, we always sold land to Turbo Can.
An entire lot. Well, now
agree
we're
with that,
now we're starting to, now we're talking, I think is a different, when you sell an entire lot, that's one thing. When you start trying to break off pieces, it would be a different category.
Well, I think if you sell the benefit to the town.
And I'm just giving you my opinion, just like Andy did. I'm not,
Say where I'm at is if there was a substantial benefit to the town and the money was sufficient that it was worthwhile, even breaking off a piece, I'd be okay, considering. Neither of those in my case, in my mind, are here in this case right here.
Okay.
All right.
So not substantial benefit financially or, okay.
How about we just do a real simple memo?
Yeah.
The planning board does not see this offer as being beneficial to the town and we do not support it.
Okay.
Sufficiently beneficial.
Okay.
What was that word, Ron?
I would say sufficiently beneficial. Because, the person who made the offer will say, well, it goes in the tax rolls, blah, blah, blah. So you can't say there's no benefit. I would say it's not sufficiently beneficial.
Okay.
But I agree with the comment that Ron made, and I think I also reiterated earlier that the town needs to evaluate whether, that property, that cutting out that piece of the property would in some way devalue or have a use for the town. If it does, then it wouldn't make sense anyway.
Yeah, I'm with Jeff is probably the same as me. I work for the government, and you got to, before you can sell something, you have it declared obsolete or, of no value to the government. So I don't think we need that formal here in Barrington, but I think we need to make some determination whether this will impact us long term negatively.
All right, so Marcia, we need a vote on this to send this letter.
Sure.
Well, I'll make a motion to send a letter to the select board. The statement that we do not support it based on what we've mentioned, insufficient value to the town. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, I had what is sufficiently beneficial or evaluate, and it said evaluate whether devalues or have use for the town.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with that. Steve Diamond. Oh, I made a motion. I'm sorry. I need a second.
Yes, I will second your motion, Jamie.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Sorry. Didn't specifically mean to call you. Donna Masucci.
Masucci, aye.
Ron Allard.
Allard, aye.
Jeff Brand.
Yeah, Brand, aye.
Steve Diamond.
Diamond, aye.
And James Jennison, aye. All right. And we got a review of a request for a building permit at 32 Crossley Road, a private road for Scott Fillion and Casey Landry Fillion. Do we have any comments, questions on that one?
Please review the comments in the memo. I did take those from the road agent's memo too.
Yeah, I read them. I have no.
My comment is I couldn't figure out where the house is going to go based on the stuff we got.
It's a lot of money in a big house.
That is a good size home.
If you look at the septic plan that you got, that shows the location of the house on the lot. And they've got all their shoreline permits and everything already set up in place there.
Okay, John, so those two, lot 15 is that whole block?
Yeah, it's a big piece of land back there. It's not your typical little waterfront lot. It's actually a good sized lot.
And that number one is where the house is gonna go?
There's the house and I think there's like a garage it showed on it. Let me see if I can bring it up here.
Yeah, I think it's up right now. So the house has got a little number one
No.
beside it. Is that right? A circle number one?
Okay, so
No.
this is the one we want. Okay, so if I enlarge it. Okay.
Is number one?
So I got
one-
the plan up
Hold
now.
on.
So the house is like long and rectangle and the garage is in the corner. And then there's the septic coming out, and this was a deck. And then this is Crosley Road right here coming in. So it's like when it first
I
gets to
kinda-
the lot. So here's Crosley Road coming down. This is lot 15. There's the
Oh.
garage, the long house, deck, the septic out front, and the water is down here. And that's the 50-foot buffer you gotta have back from the water for DES that they gotta mark on the plan. And then this other one shows 150 back, which shows the septic like 150 back from the waterway, which you almost never get in a waterfront lot for a septic. Can you see the plan? If I enlarge it anymore, I think it's just gonna get distorted more or be harder to follow.
No, I got it. I mean, I just don't see your cursor moving around, but
Yeah.
that's a,
I can't read this plan. I couldn't write, but I could read the other plan you had up before, which showed Crosley Road, and I had this same question as Ron. It looked like there was a building close to the lake, and it had a little one beside it as to whether that was where the building was going to go.
Can you put the other picture up, John?
My local version of that same image is very pixelated as well. I couldn't read the words.
Do we lose John? Oh, he's muted. John? Okay.
Okay, I didn't realize I was muted. So anyways, when I was on that, the lot that I just rolled up, where there's no house there, you can see where it shows Causey Road, and then it shows the driveway coming off a little bit, going to where it says lot 15.
This is 15 over here. I think they were.
So the house is gonna go basically where 15 is, coming across, and the garage is gonna be like right in front of where the driveway comes in. So if I roll down to this one here, you can still see Causey Road off to the left. I got it set up the same direction. And it shows the blocks in the middle is the house and the garage. And then all the little square blocks you see together, that's actually the septic. And then if you look to the left of it, there's like a rounded radius, and that's the edge of the water going down to the lake.
Yeah, what we're looking at is that little one is actually on lot 14. But the line is kind of hashed and broken, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the one's on 14. There should be a lot line. It's distorted back. There's between the 1 and the 15 where it says 150 feet. That's actually a lot line. That's not part of 15. The plan's just distorted.
all right. Well, before we go down the rabbit hole, is any of this relevant to us?
John, can't you make that larger? Not this one, the other one.
Yeah, I did it. I've been doing it, but what happens is as I make it larger, see how it distorts it even more? It's kind of hard to follow. I don't know. Can you see it now, even though it's larged up? So you can see Crosby Road off to the right, and you can see the house in the middle. The way I got it set up now. And then the little curvature way over to the far left bottom corner is the edge of the water.
Well, I don't know if it makes a difference. Yeah, big lot, big house, and the concern is Crosley Road, which the road agent has addressed. I don't have any problem with the letter that Marcia drafted.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically a dirt path, right? Feels like. I say send the letter. Any other comments?
Can you, I'm Casey Fillion. Can you tell me a little bit like what the letter is? I mean, what the concern is?
Oh, sure. I can read it to you, actually.
Okay.
All right, I'll read it. All right. Let's see. I'll just start it where the comments from the road agent were. Mark reported Crosley Road is very badly deteriorated with non-existing asphalt that has reverted back to gravel. The road is an average width of 12 to 14 feet and is somewhat poorly graded. He suggested that the homeowner builds up the side of Crosley Road along the frontage of the property a few inches and regrade any sections that are disturbed as a result of construction. Care should be taken to route driveway runoff around the front of Leach Field and into the woods, into the woods around the right side of the house. Erosion control should be placed and maintained until the vegetation is established. The driveway falls back along the road to access water from one side of the driveway to the other. It is strongly urged the homeowner joins the road association if they have not already done so. Okay?
So
I can send this to you.
Thank you, that'd be great.
This is a recommendation that actually goes to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of the Selectmen are the ones who actually make the decision in regard to the building permit. But their big concern is safe access in the roadway.
Okay, all right, so I need to do that before I go to the next piece?
No, not necessarily. This is just a recommendation the board is sending to the select board, and the select board will review that, and they may make that determination. You need to do these things, in order, to satisfy your building permit. But it's a recommendation from them. Okay.
So, and because the 12th is a holiday.
This will be in the packet that goes to the select board.
So because the 12th is a holiday, the selectmen won't be hearing until the 19th. And once they held that hearing, they'll give me permission to issue your building permit.
Okay, yes. Well, thank you, John, for all your help. Yes.
One thing I noticed from the plan here, I mean, it really is so pixelated, I can't make out much, but I note the driveway sort of across the street is kind of a hairpin turn. Some of the alignment of driveways to Crosley Road are pretty weird. So especially as people get older, they don't necessarily have the ability to look over their shoulder as well when they're looking to see if something might be coming. Yeah, that's why alignment's always nice.
Pulling out to 202?
No, I mean, so the driveway you propose, if you go out it and you see like sort of straight across a bit to the left, there's your neighbor's driveway is a hairpin turn, and yours would be at a bit of an angle, not so much a 90 connection to Crosley, more of a sharper angle.
Yeah.
So my comment is there's several driveways in the vicinity of where you connect to Crosley Road that have very strange alignment.
Well, as is the case with roads, is 90-degree intersection across the road would be better having one at an angle like that so that you cannot always see up the road.
Yeah, and that being said, Mark hasn't issued their driveway permit yet, so he might have some concern about the alignment of the driveway connection to the road. And that's something to still be determined as part of the driveway permit.
Yes, he's come down a couple of times and told us a little bit about the branches. The property's been in the family for 55 years. And that's what he said. He's like, it just needs to be, you need to cut some of these branches. So we just had to get approval from our other neighbors.
All right, well, I will make a motion to send this letter to the select board.
I second.
Motion by James Jennison, second by Jeff Brand. Steve Diamond,
Diamond Eye?
Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Ron Allard,
Allard, aye.
James Jennison, aye. Jeff Brand.
Brand aye.
Motion carried. We'll send that letter to the select board. Thank you for being patient and waiting. Have a great night. All right. We'll jump back to reports from other committees and unfinished business. Is there anything there?
Just a reminder, Barbara, we have that public hearing coming up for the master plan, correct? Is that at our next meeting, at the beginning of the meeting?
It's the next meeting.
Just to remind folks.
Second.
It's the
Second one in
20th.
October.
Yeah, second
20th.
meeting in October. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Master
October
plan on the
20th.
20th. Okay. All right.
We are going to get back to the minutes, right?
We are. We got tentative schedule for planning board 2021 review. What's that?
Yeah, Barb gave us a list of, Barb and Marcia gave us a list of respective dates.
Okay. And what did I do with my minutes? We have any questions, comments? There they are on minute review. Sorry. Corrections, comments, changes. No, hearing none. We'll do a roll call to approve minutes. Ron Allard,
Allard, aye.
Donna Masucci,
Masucci, aye.
Steve Diamond,
Diamond Eye?
Jeff Brand,
Brand aye.
James Jennison, aye. Minutes are approved as written. October 20th is our next meeting. Is there any other business or comments before we conclude?
Yes, I probably should have added this at the reports from other committees. I just wanted to pass on that in regional planning, there is formed a committee to look at resiliency regarding the drought situation, climate disruption, various other factors that have come up as a concern in regional planning, and looking at how we might both come up with ways to mitigate hazards and fully benefit from opportunities that may exist.
And I'm sure everyone's getting the emails, but there's been some online offerings for planning stuff, if anyone's interested.
Jamie, I'll just make you aware, I may not be available for the next meeting. I will shoot Marcia and Barb an email to confirm that.
All right. If you have any notes you want to pass along for the meeting, feel free, and we'll miss you if that's the case. But thank you for letting us know. Hopefully Andy will be available. And if there's nothing else, we will adjourn till October 20th.
Roll call.
Stay safe.
Roll call. You want a roll call for adjournment?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
make a motion for adjournment.
I second that.
Second.
Okay.
Donna,
Donna, aye.
Ron,
Sure.
Steve,
Aye.
Jeff,
Jeff, aye.
James Jennison, aye. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.